talk about a few issues here I think that are important. I think one of those is managing the compliance with those, right? You've got to have the right people in the right place doing the right things, or you can be fined for it, right? So that's something that's a concern and a risk to the business, right? Financially. I mean, I ran across a story of a subcontractor in DC, I believe had to pay close to, $633,000 in fines of back wages, right? In looking back at their record keeping and the individuals and what hours they were actually working on the job and not reporting those correctly in their systems, caused them to be in a a penalty type of situation. They just weren't managing the compliance, right? So how do they go about not or managing that information and not incurring those issues, those type of penalties, or bringing less concern to actually really have some automatic way of managing that rather than meticulously manually taking care of that.
I think it's nice that you bring up the compliance side or the violation side of time management within there. I have the opportunity to attend a lot of these types of conferences where several construction companies come together, and it's many different roles at these conferences. Again, everything from business owners to administrators to field operation individuals, all these different types of roles in the construction company itself that we get talked to. So you get a lot of different aspects of what their pain points are, what their requirements are. I do remember just kind of the story you were sharing about the DC organization there. I got an opportunity to talk with an individual at one of the conferences that I went to. She's a single person doing all this, but she actually takes all of the time information from her team members that they're manually writing down and keys that in to their solutions that they're using, whether that's payroll, another combined spreadsheet, what it may be. So you got a lot of intervention there and human intervention that is happening to things. And that person has to know all of those rules. Well, what is overtime? What does the Department of Labor require for that? What are the union rules around that in those type of situations? Where did they work? What did they work? How does, again, overtime get calculated and all that? To take a manual aspect of that, enter that in, not only worry about the compliance aspect of that and keeping in compliance with the Department of Labor, the unions, all of those, but just ensuring that the employee gets paid correctly. I mean, what type of experience are we providing for the employee?
Right.
If we're keying their hour information wrong, they're expecting 20 hours of overtime and they only get 5 because we input that wrong because we're hand keying that in. And that's where, I think when we talk and we hear these pain points and these requirements, how they're doing it today, again, raising that productivity level of those team members. You said it earlier in our conversation. Organizations look for that minimal amount of resources to do a large volume of work that we're doing out there, but staying in compliance with all of that and ensuring we're paying team members correctly is a huge component of that as well that we have within there.
Right. So, all right. So we've talked about compliance, right? And then you have the issue of actually just allocate or just collecting time. I think another source of pain there in that is, especially in the construction industry, you've got employees, skilled workers out there working multiple projects, right? You want their accurate time, they're not just clocking in 9 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever it might be. They're going project to project, and you need that time allocated correctly for many different reasons, right? You mentioned one, to pay the employee correctly,
Right.
but also two, for your financials, for billing on those projects and whatnot. There are others. So getting that time and the ease of that, we mentioned it earlier, for the employees, the ease of them to be able to do that. Because if it's challenging, they're not going to want to do it, right? They're like, can I just log in the morning, clock in and clock out? So what are some of those tools? But also, the employers are thinking about the same time. I want to make it easy for them, but I don't want to make it so easy that they are not doing it to our standard, right? And we've heard some other issues in the industry, several industries, but construction certainly, buddy punching, time theft type issues, things like that. We can explain that a little bit, more, but I think in the industry, it happens, right? So not only a system to administrate it better, but also to make sure you have controls around it with those employees. And all at the same time, the great tools that allow it to work seamlessly for everybody. So maybe you could talk to a little bit more about, there's solutions out there for all of those, right? How to collect that time and then how to keep those controls around it. What
Yeah.
are some of those?
And I think that was a great addition you just made there, because in my story that I was sharing, I was talking really around the compliance risks of things that were happening with there. And again, I quoted the Department of Labor and the union and all of that. And then the employee experience of the paycheck not being correct because we're miskeying something of all of that. But then now you bring in buddy punching and time theft and those controls. That's an important for the organization because they have to look at it from the financial side of things. So, those solutions that we talk about with organizations around that include a lot of things of what they need to look at. Again, we're thinking about payroll, HR, time, and workforce management within there. And when we focus on that time and workforce management, what I speak with when I hear these stories and tell them they should be reviewing for their construction business is mobility for team members. These individuals are out in the field, so you need
Right.
a mobile aspect for them to engage in. That's the experience. But let's bring the control side to that as well. That's where we look at geolocation, of knowing where they are when they're
Absolutely.
logging time information, geofencing, restricting where they can be. We want that. You talk about time theft. We don't want somebody clocking in at home and then taking a 20-minute drive to get to a job site out there, and we're paying them for that 20-minute drive.
Adds up quickly, right?
It adds up very quickly, and it's the bottom line impact, for the organization that we have out there. Scheduling tools that we want to have, within there, so team members know when and where they're supposed to be, and that also drives their time activity within there as well. And then I think the bigger important thing is not just how we have those controls and those experiences for the team member, but the ability to review and validate that. So to view that information in reports or real time activity, who's doing what, where are they at right now,
Right.
who's working on what are my crews, what are they doing, within all of that. All key components of solutions that organizations need to look at. Again, raising that productivity of their team members because now they can focus on what they need to focus on. And these concerns around compliance and controls and the violations and the fines are all taken care of, within there because it's driving all of that on their behalf.